Hey, it's Pastor Jennifer, and I'm doing a synopsis for our class, The Bible Unwrapped. Woohoo! And this is from our second class, and we talked a little bit about what the frame or the paradigm of perspective about how we perceive God in relation to the world. And Megan Good, the author, talks about four different kind of approaches. One is that the world is a closed system, and all there is available is what we're able to scientifically measure and observe. The second approach says, okay, well, maybe there is a great cosmic creator, but pretty much out of the picture. God as very separate, having once and done, this kind of done. The third approach, though, is different, that says, well, maybe God did create the world, and then maybe occasionally through the power of petition, through prayer, or through really big movements, can come in and break through a barrier or veil. And then that's a miracle, and that's kind of extraordinary kinds of happenstance, but we couldn't really count on it. But then the fourth approach says, wow, maybe God's approach about encounter to us and in the world is always intimate, is always immediate, but there's some kind of film or cloud or curtain, something that prevents us from continuously experiencing God's presence. And so we had an opportunity to discuss what that might be. Dr. Good uses an illustration that is really provocative. She talks about one of those 3D posters that on the face is just a bunch of blobs of color, but then if you have your eyes just right, the image kind of pops through. And so we thought for a while about what those blobs of color might represent, and in some cases that might be ego or id kind of desires. It might be our anxieties, our hopes, our grasping kind of nature that can step in the way and kind of cloud our perspective of God. So then the class went on and talked about the wonderful idea of these thin places where we encounter the holy and that which is other most profoundly. And for some, it was through being in particular geographical locations, like being in wonder and in awe. For others, it was having their hands in the dirt. For me, I shared about how music and singing in harmony can be one of those places where it seems like grace really pours through. And others talked about other experiences in meditation that might get them there. So there's a really big shift to the idea of how immediate and how intimate God desires to be in relationship with us. But we also want to recognize that a lot of where that sense of separation comes from the church itself, dating back to our Jewish roots, where there was this sense of sin, and that had to be overcome through offerings, through guilt offerings or through sin offerings, and that God would only love us if we were in a state of purity. And that's just not what we learn about, particularly in the New Testament, but that our belovedness, that the way God desires to be in relationship with us, has nothing to do with our sin. It's that sin can break God's heart. We see that language is used, but more often sin is that guilt, that shame, that suffering that we walk around with, and that precludes our relationship with others, and it smudges our own perception about relationship with God. So we look to find those stories, find those metaphors, find those examples that can put us into a more intimate and inherent sense of God's presence and being. And we're hoping to bring that idea of looking at those different stories through the Bible, recognizing that some of the stories are going to be tough. I mean, they are. But much of life is difficult as well. And we're still looking to shift our eyes, to get that perspective, to see that 3D image pop through that will show us the grace and the character of God. So for next week, we're looking to continue to read through subsection 7 out of part 1. Takes us to page 66. Hope that you can join us online or follow on the summary afterward, or be present with us Mondays at noon. And have a great week until then. Bye-bye.